Okay, so what I'm going to show you guys to do today is I'm going to show you how to do your drawing for this acrylic painting. You guys are going to be working directly on the canvas board. This is one that I have finished. I'm going to be doing the demonstration on a white piece of paper just so that it shows up better for the video, but you guys should be working directly on the canvas board and should end up with, you know, your version of your cup and cast shadow. You're obviously not doing the same cup I am, so it's going to be a little bit different. Okay? So what you're going to be using to do this drawing is just regular pencils. So you don't necessarily need any fancy drawing pencils. You just need a pencil. And I will say that a good eraser on the end of the pencil is very helpful. But I will also be using a pink eraser too. I've got a couple of pencils that I'm using. What I would not use is do not use a mechanical pencil, just because the lead does tend to dig into the canvas and into the ground color that we painted there and can create some problems for you. So do not use a mechanical pencil, but you can use the eraser if you need it. Okay? So that's all you're going to need. You guys obviously have your cup in front of you. When I set up the still lifes, it left me with no cup to draw, so I actually took a photograph of one of the cups, so I'm going to be working from the photograph, whereas you guys are going to be working from direct observation. Okay? So hopefully you get something like this. So this is going to be basically my canvas. This is the photo I'm working off of. So I'm going to kind of have this off to the side. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So we'll see. Okay. So some things that I want you guys, we're going to kind of talk about, and I'm going to zoom into this photograph and show you. This is actually from table 2. So if you guys are curious, this is your cup. So some things to know about the cups. Okay, cups are not as easy, especially kind of coffee cup like cups. They're not as easy as what most people might think they are to draw. It's a lot of geometry, so we're going to be dealing with a lot of ellipses. Okay, so we have one here at the top. You can see I actually drew one here kind of in the middle of my cup just to kind of keep me on track. And then you have one down here at the bottom. The important thing is that when you're doing this drawing, is that the curve here matches the curve here. And if you're going to draw a third one to kind of just keep you on track like I did, it needs to match the curve here too. So all of these ellipses need to kind of match each other, and that's going to help make the perspective convincing. The other thing that a lot of people forget about when they're drawing these cups is this part right up here, the rim. Now, as you guys can see on this photograph, you can see how thick that ceramic material is. A lot of times people just forget about it, and they just kind of use a single line right here, and it makes the cup look like it's paper thin. But we want to make sure that we can show how thick that cup is. So it's almost going to be kind of like a ring around here. And as you guys can see, the way that I drew it is that it's really thick here, and as it should be because that's in the front. But when I get back here in the back, it gets lost. Okay? And so you can see it thick here, and it gets thinner as it goes to the sides. So that's another thing that I do see kind of gets lost in some drawings of cups. The other thing is too is the handle can be quite complicated. The way that I have found that helps me to just deal with those handles is I break it down by looking at the shapes that those shadows are making. So if you guys look at your handles, you'll tell that there are some really defined shapes on there. And by kind of focusing on those, you can see I kind of outlined a few of them, not all of them, but I outlined a few of them just to kind of help me construct the handle. And then, of course, we have the cast shadows, which will kind of be the last thing that we do. Okay? So, what we need to do first is we need to figure out where your, I'll put this back up again, where your cup is going to go first. Okay? So you got to do that first. So when you're looking, so I want everybody just to look at your still life. Okay? So look at it. If your cup, when you're looking at it, is on the right side, okay, I would make sure that you place your cup over on the right side. Okay? So my cup, when I took this photo, is on the right side, so I put my cup over here on the right side. If your cup looks like it's over on the left, then I would put over the left. That's going to give you room for the cast shadow. What you don't want to happen is, you know, like if I put this cup over here on this side, the cast shadows would all be going here, and I'd have nothing right here to show, okay? So make sure you have your cup on one side and your cast shadows going another, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come around and help you figure out where to put that cup first, and then we'll start the drawing, okay? All right, so everybody knows where they're going to put their cup, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you how to start drawing this, okay? So let me get this out of the way. All right, so this is going to be kind of hard. Let me see here. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do, okay, let me get it so that you guys can see my whole paper. I don't necessarily want my cup to be all the way here at the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to kind of make a mark where I want the bottom of the cup to be and the top, okay? So I want everybody to kind of do the same thing. I want you to make a mark where you would like the bottom of your cup to be, okay? So I'm just going to kind of make a little dash mark right here. That's going to represent where the bottom of my cup is going to be. And the next mark I need to make is how where the top of the cup is going to be. Now, if you guys want to, okay, you can do this, draw this cup life size. So if you want to, you can take your hand and you can kind of measure just with your hands how big or how tall the cup is, and then you can just mark where the top of it is, okay? So I'm just going to guess because I'm working from a photograph, okay? I'm working from a photograph. And I would say life size is probably good because then if you have any questions about how tall or how wide something needs to be, you can just actually measure the actual object and you can make those marks then on your paper, okay? All right, so I've got the top and the bottom marked down. Hopefully you guys have the same thing, okay? Mine is kind of like a taller cup again, okay? So it's kind of a tall, skinny-ish looking cup. Some of you guys have short, wide cups, like teacups, and some of you have like tall, slender coffee cups. So everybody's going to be in a different boat, okay? All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basically start with the bottom of the cup, okay? And I'm just going to kind of erase over just this bottom mark just so it lightly shows up. I just don't want it to kind of get in my way. And so I'm going to start with the bottom of the cup. And again, this is not going to be just a flat, straight line. It has to be curved. So I'm going to just start. I'm going to look at the cup. And I'm just going to kind of mimic and try to guess at the curve that I need here. Now the other question I need to answer is how wide does that need to be? And the way that I could answer that question is, again, I can take my hands and I can go up to the cup and measure just how wide the bottom of the cup is. So if you have that question, that's what I would do. Oh, I'm having problems with the lighting. And the focus. So whenever I have the spotlights on, the lighting on the video is always a little weird. Okay, so everybody's curve is going to be a little bit different depending on your cup. Okay. Okay. So now for my cup, my particular cup that I was drawing actually gets wider at the top and it's thinner at the bottom of it. Ah, this focus is still off. No, let's see. I'm back to the upright. So again, it's not as wide here at the bottom and it's wider at the top. Some of you guys might be the opposite again. So I need to make sure that this cup is getting wider as it goes up here. So I'm going to go ahead, because my cup is kind of like that, I'm going to go ahead and just very lightly draw these sides. Now this is not my shape. These are just guidelines for me. Now if your cup goes straight up, you're going to be drawing your sides, just these guidelines basically. You're going to draw those straight up. Maybe perhaps you're one of those cups that has two sections. You know, one's wider at the top, one's thinner here. We're going to go in and cut that in, okay? And mine pretty much does have kind of like a bottom and a top, and I'll separate it later, but I just want to kind of get an idea for that, you know, that it's going out here. Again, up here at the top, if I have any questions about how wide it needs to be, at the very top I can, again, use my hands and measure the top of the cup and use it, and then just bring that measurement down to my canvas or my drawing, and that will give me some guidance. Let's see here. Oh, no. Okay, it's close. Okay. Now remember, this represents the very top of my cup, so technically I don't need to draw that all the way up, but the lighting. That looks better. Okay, so now I'm going to just start kind of, I'm going to finish this bottom here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw that ellipse here, that and I don't see the ellipse. Obviously I can't see through my cup. But I'm going to go ahead and draw this as a guideline. I'm going to need this when I get to the top of the cup. So go ahead and draw your ellipse down there at the bottom. Again, we are drawing the back edge of the cup, and we can't see that. Now here's the important part of this step, and I'm going to zoom into this. At the very bottom, right here, these corners, I'm going to circle it. Do not let those corners on this ellipse get pointy. They should always be curved, no matter how thin that ellipse is. It should always be curved. So whatever you do, and I'm going to show you, the bottom should not, the corner should not look like that. Okay? The corner should not look like this. All right, this would be the bad way to do it. You want it to be curved. It can be a small curve, but it cannot be pointy. You want to keep that curved. All right? So I'm going to zoom back out. Again, this is what not to do. You want that curve there on the corners. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ellipse down here in the center of my cup. Now, some of you guys have cups that actually have like a bottom, a whole bottom section, and then a separate kind of top section that's very different. I would put your ellipse there so you can actually start drawing that section, okay? So I'm going to go ahead, and again, so this line that I'm drawing right now needs to match this curve right here. So again, this curve and this curve need to match. Now, sometimes what I like to do is I like to actually turn my drawing upside down, and I'll use that. I'll draw this upside down just to kind of reference it and try to match it better. I'm going to hold this up again. You guys should be drawing with your drawing board up and at an angle, not flat on your table. Okay, remember, never draw flat on your table. I'm only drawing flat on my table because I'm doing this demonstration. So do the best you can to get that to match. You can see I'm playing with mine. This is where that pencil eraser comes in handy. I'm going to use this to kind of clean this up. Now, we are human beings, so getting this perfect is just not attainable. but you can get close. You want to get good at drawing? Practice cups. Still playing here. Now, who's to say that I could have that in the wrong place, and I may have to move this, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. I'm all right. So I've got the bottom part of that ellipse. Now I'm going to do the back, and again, I want this to kind of match that one. So I'm going to draw the back, and again, I want to get that curve. Don't make it pointy. Now, we've got some alumni who actually are transportation designers, which basically means they design cars. So we've got one that is a designer for the luxury brands at GM. We have another one who was working for Tata Motors and was designing for Jaguar and Land Rover, and just recently moved back to the United States to take a job with Jeep. So I'll never forget those kids when they first started in their majors. They had to draw like 100 ellipses a day. And they had to do it freehand. And they basically had to do it until they could do it in their sleep. So they're not easy shapes to draw. Mine's a little bendy, not so round. All right, so just play around with yours until you got it in a good place. And again, you guys can erase on that canvas board. It works pretty well. I'm still playing around with mine. You just play until you get in a good place. All right, like I said, who knows? I might find out I've got that in the wrong spot, and I might have to move it, and I'm okay with that. Chalk it up to practice. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, my cup right here sort of in the middle of it really takes a form change, so it gets a lot wider right here. Now, even though I've drawn this guideline right here, I'm actually going to need to kind of work outside of this a little bit. So for those of you that have a cup like mine, so this is like the lime green cup. There's also a blue cup that's also like this one too. You'll notice that kind of right here at the right at the middle, it really jets out. So I'm going to start working on that. So let's all just start working on the top part of our cup. I'm going to kind of make this form change here. And I'm just kind of working off of this guideline that I made earlier. The other thing that's really hard about cups is getting them to look symmetrical. That's really hard. Again, just do the best you can. We can even kind of play around with these after we add the paint. So I'm going to try this on the other side. This is tricky. Can never get the two sides to look alike. So again, I do like to work upside down sometimes when I'm doing this stuff. Kind of helps me see it a little bit better. So if you need to, flip it upside down. There we go. Close enough. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with the very top of my cup, where the opening of the cup is. Now remember, this represents the very top of my cup. So the opening is actually going to start below that. So one of the things I want to figure out is just how much space needs to be between the top back edge and the bottom front edge. So what I'm going to do, this represents the top of my cup. I'm going to kind of make a mark where I think the bottom front edge needs to be. So I'm looking at the space in between these, okay? So get a good look at your cup. Ask yourself just how much space needs to be between the back edge and the front edge, and make a mark where you think that front edge needs to be, okay? Now we're going to do our ellipse for the top. So again, I need this curve, so this curve, and this curve all need to match. So to kind of get myself started, I'm going to turn it upside down again, and I am going to try to just match it. It helps me kind of get it started. And I'll flip it. I just kind of go back and forth between flipping it upside down, and then also too, remember, look at it. You guys should be, again, always have your board up at an angle or your paper up at an angle. You should never be drawing flat on your table. When you draw flat on your work surface, you're looking at it from a foreshortened viewpoint. That's going to mess you up. And I think I'm going to have to go a little bit above where I think the top of my cup is, and that's fine. I'm all right with that. I think I had to do that on my original drawing too. All right, I'm going to start now. I want you to notice something. If you guys all look up here real quick, I am leaving, I'm going to kind of circle this area here. I am leaving this not connected, so I'm leaving it open. I'm not connecting it here on the side, so don't connect it, because there's a trick I'm going to show you. And see, and this is leading me to fix that ellipse. So now I'm going to work on the top. So again, I'm playing around with my ellipses. Do not let those corners get pointy. Keep them curved. I'm getting a little pointy on this one corner, so I need to fix it. Now again, we're human beings. It's hard to be really, it's hard to be symmetrical. It's hard to be perfect. But if you want to get good at this, you can be like our designers for GM and Jeep and draw, a couple hundred ellipses a day. You get really good after a while. Okay, so again, take note, guys. look at my corners here. They're not connected. I kind of have a floating ellipse up here. I need it kind of curved. There we go. I'm not completely happy with this ellipse of mine in the middle. I think it's got some fixing that needs to happen. And I think it is getting a little bit pointy on the sides. Now, of course, that ellipse will get it'll get painted over, but. All right, so I want you guys to get to a point where your drawing kind of looks like this. You have these gaps up here. This is going to help us get started on showing the thickness of our ceramic material, okay? So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure this is all kind of cleaned up here. I don't want a super thick line. Clean that up. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I want to show again how thick the ceramic material is. So when you look at your cup, you know, this is the front of the cup, right? So anything in the front is going to be bigger because it's closest to us. So this part is going to be the widest part, okay? And I don't want to make it too thick. So I'm just going to kind of make it about like this. And then as I wrap it around to the sides, I'm going to get I'm going to get skinnier. So I want it to get thinner and thinner as it gets closer to these corners. And I can see that it kind of just disappears towards the back here. And as soon as it kind of makes that turn up here. Again, thickest up here in the front, and then it should get skinnier as it goes around the side. I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. Skinny, skinny, skinny as you get to the side here. So now you should see how thick that cup is, okay? So now I need to finish it off by just kind of connecting all of this. It's going to give me a chance to kind of clean some things up. There we go. Okay. So there's the body of my cup, essentially, okay? This is a good time to just kind of look at everything and just make sure, again, make sure you're holding it up and looking at it the right way. You should be seeing it the same way everyone else is going to see it. Right in front of you, not laying on the table. All right, so that's the body of the cup. My next step is the handle. So I'm going to do the handle next, but I want to give you guys a couple minutes just to kind of tidy things up, because you definitely want to make sure the body of your cup is in a good place before you start the handle. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'll just show you, I'll explain what these lines are, because I kind of did this when I wasn't recording. What I did was I turned my cup, the body of my cup, kind of on its side, and I basically split them in half, okay, because I want them to look symmetrical as much as possible. Now, again, I've talked about this already a million times. We are human beings. We can't be perfect, but, you know, my goal is just to get as close as possible. So when I split them in half this way, I want it to kind of look the same on both sides of this midline, okay? So it's a good little test, and it does help to kind of find some areas that need to be fixed. And even though I've got 3 different ellipses here, their ratio of height to width needs to be the same throughout the whole thing. But they're just 3 different sizes. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw the handle. Now the handles are, again, not as easy as you think they would be. Okay, a lot of people just kind of sketch them in really quickly, and because of that, then they look really flat. We need to, again, be able to show how thick this ceramic material is. We want it to feel three-dimensional. All right? So what I'm going to do, is I'm going to start by, and you can start wherever you want to feel comfortable, but I'd like to figure out where does it need to sort of connect to the cup. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of make a really quick sketch of where it needs to connect to the cup. Mine's kind of turned towards me. Not exactly, but it's here on the side, but not on the side. That did not make sense, but it is on the side. It's just not all the way over on the side. So I'm going to draw this top edge that I see here, kind of guessing at how wide that needs to be. And then I want to draw sort of like a little mark or something, indicate where it needs to sort of end here at the bottom. And another thing you can do to kind of figure that out, you can take the height of your cup, you can divide it in half with your hand. And again, I would do this right up against the actual cup. Figure out where the middle of your cup is by just taking your finger, putting one at the top and one at the bottom, and bringing them together to figure out where the middle is. And then ask yourself, where does the handle relate to the middle of the cup? Okay? Because everybody's handle is different. Mine is above the middle. It's not even, yeah, it's above. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of draw or indicate. I see this kind of shape here, where I see it connecting here at the bottom. This and this do not look the same for me. Okay? So now what I'm going to do, because of the shadows and all that kind of stuff, it's a little confusing. So what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to try to draw the outside, the very far outside edge of my handle, and then I'm going to cut back into it and try to create the rest of it. So I'm just going to, again, kind of take a look. And I need to figure out just how far out it needs to go. So I'm going to compare the width of the bottom of my cup to the width of my handle. And they're not the same, but they're kind of close. So it needs to come out about right here. So again, the way that I kind of came up with this is that I compared the width of the bottom of the width of my cup to the width of my handle, because I don't have any idea how wide or how far out it should go. So because I don't know that, I'm going to find the answer, and I'm going to find it by comparing it to something I already have drawn. So I compared it to the bottom of my cup. So it doesn't quite come out as far as that, just a little bit. So I need to take it out about that far. So I'm going to draw kind of like a line here. So I know that I don't want to necessarily go past that. Now, if I start drawing and it doesn't look right, then I'm going to change my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing this out. It doesn't come straight out for me. It's a little bit angled. I have some bends that happen. I don't want to get too picky right now because I can fix it later. And then I have some, it kind of curves in here. So you really want to kind of pay attention to the changes that are happening on your handle. And then I'm just going to kind of connect it to this mark down here. And I'm going to take a look at that, and I'm just going to be very critical of it. Make any changes that I feel are obvious right now. Again, everybody's handle is going to be a little bit different. Not so sure about this shape. So I'm going to kind of play around with it. So I kind of play around with this outside shape for a little while. And then what I'm going to do, there we go, is then I'm going to cut in. I'm going to try to draw the other side now. And again, I'm going to, because I can't really see some of the things because of the shadows and stuff, I'm actually going to use the shadows. I'm going to draw the shapes that I see some of these shadows make. And the hope is that then when I'm done, I kind of end up with my handle. I'm looking kind of at the width of stuff in different areas. This kind of gets skinny down here, so I want to change this. I'm looking at the negative space also too. Okay, so again, I'm drawing some of these shapes that I see the shadows making to help me figure this thing out. And so for me, this is kind of like just a big puzzle that I'm just trying to figure out, piecing these things together. As I figure some of the big shapes out, then I can go in and I can add in the small shapes that I see. And then as I add some of those sort of shapes that those shadows are making, if I don't have enough room, then that's telling me I have to change something. All right, so I'm just going to keep this going. I think I kind of have, yeah. Okay. And then I'm just going to the part of the cup that the handle's kind of covering, I'm going to erase that, and that'll help me also too to see how this needs to work. Okay. I think got some shapes in there. All right. So again, these are just some right here that I've drawn right there. That's just some shapes that I see the shadows making that I'm just trying to kind of plug in to just help make some sense of what I'm looking at. All right, so there's my handle. I don't know which one I like better. I don't know. I don't know. But there they are. You can see that both my drawings are a little different. That's fine. Okay, those are drawn at 2 different times. This was this morning and that's right now. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the cast shadows. Okay, so for the cast shadows, again, just look at how it relates to your cup. I actually have 2 cast shadows on mine. So what I like to do is figure out where the cast shadow is in relationship to the cup and where it starts. So I like to make marks on the cup where they need to start first. They don't always start where you think they should, so pay attention to what your drawing is telling you. And then like for this one that I have coming down here, coming down from the bottom of the cup down, it gets wider as it comes towards me. So I know where it starts. I've made some marks on my cup where that needs to start, and then I'm just going to kind of draw these out. And again, you can see mine is going to go off my paper, so that's perfectly fine. If you're trying to figure out just how big your cash shadow needs to be, you can compare it to the height of your cup. So if you want to make sure that you're drawing it the right size, compare it to your cup. You know, is it as long as the height of your cup? That's a good question to ask. So for this one. So again, before I start a cash shadow, I want to figure out where it needs to start. This one starts. And then I just kind of look at the angle. Draw it in very lightly. I'm looking for any subtle curves, which this one has it. Do not underestimate the importance of a cash shadow. Okay, these are really, really important because this is what helps define your light and the form and object that you're drawing. So pay attention. Cash shadows are a little weird. But they're so very important. So there are my cash shadows. I kind of play around with this one. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys the rest of the class period to work on these drawings. And then we're definitely going to start painting them next week. So we'll just see how far we can get on it. All right, that's it.